Yoel, Roth, Twitter, Donald Trump. Donald Trump had this little video out, and this is back from 2020.
This is the arbiter. This guy is the arbiter of what's supposed to go on Twitter. He's the one he thought, and he used CNN as a guide. CNN, which is fake news. He uses CNN as a guide. His name is Yoel Roth.
Okay, everyone's talking about this Yoel Roth guy who looks like a total creep at this point in time, but I'm a lot more concerned about Yoel Roth's coordination with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, because Yoel Roth cannot actually destroy my life, but the FBI very much can. How much corruption was taking place at the FBI under Bill Barr, I might point out?
Yeah, we should definitely note Barr's role here. Just to say very quickly, it's very important, right? Remember that Bill Barr knew about Hunter Biden's laptop because he wrote in his own book he was shocked to hear the Democratic candidate for president, Joe Biden, lie that the laptop was Russian disinformation. So Barr knew the laptop was authentic, even while his deputies at the FBI were out briefing that it was Russian disinformation. So William Barr should be compelled to answer significant questions about election interference in the 2020 vote, right? This is very important. And Jesse, I agree with you 100%. There's no doubt that this guy, Yoel Roth, is a creep, as you say. But one of the important things that we'd like to see, I think, more information coming from these Twitter files is the role of federal government agencies, including the FBI here, right? We see suggestions. Yoel Roth is joking around about, oh, no, it wasn't the FBI, presumably being sarcastic, as though it was the FBI. We would like to have names. We would like to know who was involved. We've seen different things on social media, different posts about the number of former FBI and CIA officials who were working in redundant positions at Twitter, in security, compliance, such things like that. And we remember the deputy general counsel of the FBI at the time was none other than Mr. James Baker, who had been general counsel at the FBI when the Russia collusion operation was set in motion, targeting Donald Trump, his aides, and eventually Donald Trump supporters as well. So, Jesse, I couldn't agree with you more. We need more detail on what federal authorities, what federal agencies were doing to censor Americans. That's what's central here. If it's just these clowns at Twitter who are telling people to shut up, while that's very bad and they may be liable in different ways, the real issue here is, did the government work to violate the First Amendment rights of Americans? That's the key.
Amen. Lee Smith, you're the best, brother. Thank you. Okay, Congressman, what's in the omnibus bill, and is it going to pass?
Well, Jesse, thanks for having me on. We don't know what's in the omnibus bill. First of all, they say they have a framework, so we don't know what's in the framework. Second of all, we're not involved in crafting the framework, at least not in the House of Representatives. Now, there are Senate Republicans that are involved. I say Senate Republicans so-called because, look, if you're a conservative, if you're trying to do what your Republican voters in your state sent you to do, you're not going to be doing this. But here's what I can tell you. I think it's about $1.6 to $1.9 trillion in additional spending. Oh. Jesse, just for the context, the Fed just announced more rate increases to crush the housing market and to tamp down this runaway record inflation. And the Senate and soon to be in the House of Representatives, we're pouring the gasoline of printed money, just created money out of thin air on the fire. We are standing on the precipice of that. And of course, on cue, with Christmas looming, they're going to back us right into a corner and say, well, if you don't vote for it, the government's going to shut down right before Christmas, and so-and-so is not going to be able to buy, their child, G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip or something like that, right? So that's where we are.
Well, the government shutting down right before Christmas would be the greatest Christmas gift I could ever receive. But all that aside, do they genuinely not see the debt and how it's going to smash this nation? I realize it hasn't yet, but it is obviously, we're in the early stages of it. Both parties continue to do this as if that freight train is never going to get here. It blows my mind.
Yeah, and let me introduce you to what's called modern monetary theory. And of course, the left has fully taken this on and believe in it. Now a bunch of folks, Republicans, are starting to believe it. And that theory says that because we're the reserve currency, it doesn't actually matter how much we spend. We can spend as much as we want to. We don't even have to tax for it. Now, Jesse, they're going to continue to tax you because they want to punish certain activities that people like you engage in, like buying SUVs, buying gasoline, living in a home instead of a tent, those kind of things. But that's where we're headed right now. They don't see debt as an issue because they don't think it's ever going to be a problem. And I mean literally, they don't think it's ever going to be a problem. Of course, China is happy just to watch us do this and destroy our country and the opportunities for any future that our children are going to have.
One thing I did find a little bit encouraging, although I don't trust it at all, was Kevin McCarthy at least sounds like he's against it. Here he was.
Are you going to get a time to read it? They're trying to jam us right before Christmas. Why would you ever move forward when there's a change in power in 21 days where Republicans would have a stronger hand? That we wouldn't be talking about adding more money, we'd talk about decreasing.
Yeah.
Okay,
well, look,
that sounds good. He's been sounding good. What say you?
That sounds good, but we got to back that up, right? So how do we back that up? We need every single Republican in the House of Representatives voting no on this to provide no cover. You know, you always notice how the Democrats and the media say bipartisan support. We should provide no bipartisan support in the House. And quite honestly, members, including the guy that wants to be the next Speaker of the House, needs to call out these Republican senators and say, quit betraying the people that sent you. Quit betraying your own children and grandchildren. Quit betraying the country. Nobody sent you here to bankrupt the country. Look, it's unpleasant. We don't want to have to call out Republicans, but let's face it, they've earned it. And we need the guy that wants to lead the Republican conference to play hardball because they sure are with us in our wallet.
Okay, Greg. Now, can you explain? Now, obviously, Maxine Waters is an idiot, so maybe that's the explanation for the clip we played off the top. But is this somebody Democrats are uniquely invested in? Why would she try to prevent them from being questioned?
Well, that's exactly correct. Sam Bankman-Fried was only second to George Soros in donations to the Democrat Party in the 2022 election cycle. Whenever there was a Democrat campaign anywhere, money from Sam Bankman-Fried was probably involved. You know, it's that, and that's like part of the reason why he was able to get away with this for so long, because he donated money to the right politicians. He was the son of college professors. He went to good schools. He was a liberal who donated to progressive causes and to Democrat candidates. And essentially, these people, they don't want to bite off the hand that feeds them. And that's why instead of, being exposed for what he was doing, stealing people's money and running a $32 billion company that didn't even have a board of directors, instead of doing that, Democrat, he was giving money to all of the people who should have been investing in that.
Okay, so why do we have all these FTX representatives in front of Congress and not Sam Bankman-Fried himself?
Yeah, well, so, interesting timing. DOJ could have chosen any time in the last month to indict Sam Bankman-Fried. The government could have extradited him from the Bahamas anytime they wanted to. And they mysteriously chose to do it the day before he was supposed to testify remotely in front of Congress. That, no coincidence at all right there, that's when they chose to indict him. First of all, it's a good thing that he's being indicted. The guy deserves to spend the rest of his life in jail. But, the timing of it does really make you scratch your head and wonder, what was he going to say, under oath in Congress, being questioned by, Republican representatives. The timing is certainly doesn't seem like a coincidence, Jesse.
So we do have estimates of how many encounters there are at the border on a daily basis. We have processes and procedures in place to identify those individuals, to process them in an orderly fashion, and then to do what is appropriate based on that processing. And we have believed that system is a system that does an effective job of being able to determine who is coming across the border and what the right way to deal with their case is.
Well, sounds like they're doing a great job. I don't know what everyone's so concerned about. Joining me now, my friend Mark Krikorian, Executive Director of the Center for Immigration Studies. Mark, I'm looking at some paper here, and average of 2,400 plus migrant encounters over a 3-day span in El Paso. Man, that doesn't sound like it's being very effective to me, but you're the expert. I'm not. Mark, could you elaborate, please?
Depends what you mean by effective. Effective for them, as you could sort of, if you read between the lines of that statement you just played, what they're saying is, are they successfully processing people? That's the term they're using, not deterring illegal immigration, not protecting the border, processing people, which is to say they take their picture, whatever it is, they may hold on to them for a day or so, and then they let them go. That is success for these folks. That's how they define success. So, you know, he's not lying. That's what they want. The question is that what we should, is that the policy we should actually have? And the answer is obviously no.
The answer is obviously no, and I have another question, and I know it's a stupid question, Mark, but I'm stupid, so I do that. That doesn't sound legal. It can't possibly be legal for the President of the United States of America and his staff to intentionally open up the border. This can't be legal, right?
No, it's not. The immigration law mandates that anyone caught illegally crossing the border has to be kept in detention during the entire course of our deciding what to do with them. Either you return them or they have an asylum hearing or what have you, and then they're let go into the United States. Just mass releases into the United States is not permitted. What the tool they're using is something called parole, which is different from the criminal justice parole. What it means is it's an authority, a very narrow authority, that the executive has to let in people who don't have any right to come in. That's the kind of thing you use for somebody, say their appendix burst, and you got to get them to the hospital, and the closest one is 5 minutes away across the border. Something like that. You can use parole. This administration is not using it on a one-by-one basis. It's using it in a mass sense to let in hundreds of thousands of people. That's clearly a violation of law, and yet Congress, isn't interested in doing anything about it because the Democrats in Congress support this.
Mark, can you explain the reason why there's all of a sudden a surge in El Paso? The border's just so far away from most Americans. They don't understand the different regions. They don't understand the different reasons why there are these migrant surges. What's going on?
I actually don't know specifically why El Paso now, because these things do shift around. It depends on what which part of the border, which cartel controls which part of the border. Sometimes every part of the Mexican side of the border is controlled by one or another cartel. And sometimes some of the cartels will say, okay, we're not collecting a tax for coming through our turf. You guys can just, as long as you make your way out, you can do it. And so people will start going there because it's cheaper. There's all kinds of dynamics here, and I actually don't know why El Paso specifically now, but it could be San Diego tomorrow. South Texas has always been the big place over the past couple of years because it's closest to Central America. You have to go the shortest distance. But in a sense, it doesn't matter which particular place they're coming across. Doesn't matter because this administration is basically letting people go wherever they cross. So this is kind of like, well, the wind blows this direction instead of that direction. It doesn't really matter that much. The basic truth here is that this administration is inviting mass illegal immigration.
Don't miss Jesse Kelly Breaks History, Che Guevara, the latest episode of a new series available now exclusively for First TV supporters. Visit the First TV app or thefirsttv.com to subscribe and start watching today. Don't miss Jesse Kelly Breaks History, The Forgotten Genocide, the first episode of a new series available now exclusively for First TV supporters. Visit the First TV app or thefirsttv.com to subscribe and start watching today.